name is Zoe Hardy, and I will be doing my COMM 335 presentation on the blind side. I will begin my presentation by summarizing the movie. I will then play a short clip, which then I will analyze for the remainder of this presentation. I will go into detail summarizing the characters, why the scene I show is relevant to COMM 335, as well as make the connection between these characters and their so-called gender norms. The Blind Side is centered around a poor African-American boy named Big Mike. He was nicknamed this because he is a very large person who would be ideal to play left tackle in football. Due to his circumstances growing up, he was never given the opportunity to play, and therefore was never taught. The Tuohys are a wealthy, well-to-do family at the school in which Michael's friend's dad gets him into. One night, Big Mike was walking along the street when Leanne saw him and got out of their car and proceeded to ask him where he was going. He said, "I'm going to the gym." And Leanne says about 3 times, "Big Mike, why were you going to the gym?" And Big Mike says, "Because it's warm." So she, being the motherly woman she is, proceeds to take him under her wing, feed him, clothe him, pay for his tuition, all the things a mother would do. Except there's one thing she did that wasn't so motherly. She was the only person who could teach him to play football. Eventually, Big Mike gets really good and commits to play at Ole Miss. A lot more happens, but that's the basic overview of the plotline.
Hey, let's go! Forward! You got 100 pounds on Collis and you can't keep him out of our backfield? Hold your block until the whistle blows. Hold it. All right, let's go.
With the camera. Michael always does better when he sees what he's supposed to be doing.
Holding. Left tackle.
Michael, come on.
Or. Come here, son. Hold him inside here between the tits. You got it? Would you look at me, son? If you grab him outside here like this or that horse collar thing you just did, you're going to get flagged and I'm going to be pissed. You hear me? All right, let's go.
Baby, wash my stuff, all right? Okay.
Well, at least they look good coming off the bus. They'll be terrified till they realize he's a marshmallow. Looks like Tarzan plays like Jane.
Give me a minute, Bert.
We're in the middle of practice, Leanne.
You can thank me later. Michael, do you remember when we first met and we went to that horrible part of town to buy you those dreadful clothes? And I was a little bit scared and you told me not to worry about it because you had my back. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And if anyone tried to get to me, you would have stopped them, right? And when you and SJ were in that car wreck, what did you do to the airbag?
Stopped it.
You stopped it. You stopped it. This team is your family, Michael. You have to protect them from those guys, okay? Listen. Okay. Tony here's your quarterback, all right? You protect his blind side. When you look at him, you think of me, how you have my back, how you have his, okay? All right, Tony, go back. All right. Oompa Loompa here is your tailback. When you look at him, you think of SJ and how you've never let anyone or anything hurt him. You understand me? All right. Go back. Got it?
What about Collins and Mr. Tui?
Fine. They can be on the team, too. Are you going to protect the family, Michael?
Yes, ma'am.
Good boy. And go have some fun. Yelling at him doesn't work, Bert. Doesn't trust men. In his experience, they pretend to care about you till they disappear.
Want to run a play?
SJ, you're going to want to get this.
Okay. Hello, Michael.
All right, Michael, come on.
say to him?
You should get to know your players, Bert. He tested 98% in protective instincts. I said you could thank me later. It's later, Bert.
Leanne goes to Big Mike's football practice. She watches from the sidelines like a normal mom would. Leanne goes onto the field to teach Big Mike how to play. This in turn shocks the coach because it was probably something he'd never seen before, and he might have found it slightly disrespectful that a woman was trying to coach his team considering football is dominantly male. Finally, Big Mike learns to play football, becomes really good, and the coach can't say anything because Leanne was right even though she is a woman. Leanne knew Big Mike was not going to pick up the game until she taught him because Big Mike does not trust men because his father left him when he was very young. This created distrust between Big Mike and strong male leaders. She knew it was her duty as his guardian to teach him in a way he would learn, which goes back to her motherly instinct. When she sees her child struggling, it is hard for her to cope with it, so she thinks it is better off that she teaches him herself. So where does Leanne fall? Leanne is highly feminine because of her motherly instincts and the way she portrays herself. But she is also slightly masculine because of the way she feels empowered and because she knows a lot about football and the way men think despite not being / wanting to be male. I included this quote that says, "These practices include the seemingly innocent standard that girls and women more polite, ladylike, and willing to smile, and that they should take sexist remarks, straight calls, and whistles as innocent jokes or flattery." This relates back to the end of the clip when the boys are looking at her in a sexual manner, even though she is empowered and she did use her more masculine traits to teach him football. She still is a woman and is still looked at as a woman. Big Mike comes from a homeless background, which already puts into place some misinformed gender roles to his psyche. For example, his mom was a drug addict and his dad left him, so he has really bad trust issues with authority figures as well as guardians. Furthermore, he has a hard time adjusting to his new rags to riches sort of lifestyle. He does not feel like completely part of the Tui family yet. He still feels like an outsider. His grades were also awful to start out with, and going to a private school from a public school is hard because it is just so much more competitive and difficult. His masculinity is challenged when Leanne steps in because he's around a bunch of boys that have known how to play the game their whole life, and boys are oftentimes looked at as having to play football or they're not man enough. Since Big Mike didn't know how to play and was really confused on how to play, I'm sure this was not a very comfortable feeling for him. So how is Big Mike's gender role threatened? Because Leanne stepped outside her normal gender roles, this scene is a good representation of how both parties' gender roles are influenced by a single person's actions. I thought normativity represented this scene really well because though she is not doing what the norm for women is, she is doing the good thing, the desirable thing, the moral thing, and the rational thing. The coach is the person who convinced everyone on the board at the school to allow Big Mike to attend. His intentions, though seemed innocent, actually have a larger incentive behind them. He wanted him to play football for Wingate, which is his own personal benefit. This proves to be ironic when he cannot teach Big Mike himself. He thinks he knows everything about Big Mike and how he learns, but it is in fact proven wrong by Leanne. How is the coach's gender role threatened? When Leanne steps in, the coach is noticeably upset because it's his team and he does not want to seem less valuable to his players than before. Men who are victimized are emasculated. I think this represents the scene very accurately because Leanne, in a sense, made the coach a victim to his own coaching skills, which then in turn emasculated his ego. Making the connections. I think essentialism really fits into this movie because a poor boy is thrown into a rich background and is expected to act like them, play like them, and be like them when he just isn't. He is mentally scarred from things he has experienced over his lifetime, which will be with him forever. Psychological theories also play a big role here because Big Mike was unable to learn from the male coach because he didn't trust him, is a repercussion of things that Big Mike lived through as an adolescent. This scene also represents the concept of patriarchy because obviously the male coach was favored over Leanne despite Leanne having much better capability to coach Big Mike. In conclusion, I think this scene represents gender roles very accurately. It proves some very important topics that were presented in the book that were assigned for class. I learned over the course of this class that gender is not always male and female. There are some gray areas, and some women are more masculine and some men are more feminine, which is okay. This class gave me a larger scope on gender than I had before, and for that I am very thankful.